Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, whatever it is. How are we all doing? Yeah, I'm fixing my cup of tea. That's right, Scuba. How you guys doing? I can't see you. Straight on, I can see out of this visor, but peripheral vision is not great. Oops, turn the sound off. Jedi of the Return, yeah. Yes, the helmet. a lot of people know that I bought this for myself for my birthday, and people wanted to see me wear it. So I'm not going to do the whole stream like this because when I look out the side, I can't really see through the visor and see the screen and read the comments. It's also very hot in here. Yeah, I'll use the Force. Oh, thanks, Michael. He's saying the picture looks good. So, Chris Miwa, how you doing? Jody, George Aitken. Me and Michael forming a squadron. Yeah, possibly. Stay on target. Right, this has got to come off. Ugh. Oh, that's better. I love this thing though. This is super cool. I've been watching it on eBay for ages, and got one of those email notifications from eBay to say that the seller had dropped the price, and I had to get it. So, but that's a Star Wars helmet, as in from the first film, and we're here today to talk about Return of the Jedi. Keith Holmesley, no whiskey in this tea. I had a couple of beers last night, but not too many. Had a really early night actually. I was awake at about 4:30 this morning, so Mason Melendez has been collecting Star Wars for 2 years. Keep going, man. Keep going. It's a great hobby. The stream's looking really good. The last stream went well. Obviously, some of you know I was having issues when I was trying to run it through my Sony 4K camera. The last stream went really well, but then when I rewatched it, sort of about a 45 minutes or an hour into the stream, started to get the whole freeze frame thing going on again. So this time I've decided to drop it down from HD to 720p. I did a bit of a test last night, and it seemed to work really well. So hopefully the stream runs smoothly for the duration of what we're going to talk about today. So random things. How much did that Rancor cost? I can't remember now. I bought that a couple of years ago. I think I paid about $90 US, something like that. Not sure what they're worth, but awesome toy. One of my Retroblasting saying acrylic case mint on cards. Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants. Yeah, these are not AFA graded, Michael. I just happen to have a few acrylic cases where I can actually take the figures out, and I have 2 carded Return of the Jedi figures. So since it's Return of the Jedi, I thought I'd pop them on the table. This here is a Stan Solo custom. Yeah, I've just got these acrylic cases where you can take the bottom out and then actually slide the card out of the acrylic case. I'm not an AFA, AFA collector or anything like that. Don't get suckered in, folks. Don't get suckered into grading. I can't get him back in there now. I'll fix that later. John saying hello from Greece. Glenn, love from Brighton. I grew up in Worthing, not far at all. Not far from me at all. The Retro Blasting saying his only Jedi mint on card is Weequay, and everyone in the world has one of those. Some people use them as bookmarks. Yeah, I did have a Klaatu at one point. I purchased it on eBay because I got it for like $28 or something. I don't know whatever happened to it. I've either sold it or traded it over the years. They did make a lot of different characters from Jabba's Palace, didn't they? I don't have them all on the table. There's just so, when I was setting up the display last night, there was just so many of them. I'm sure there's 2 Klaatus, of which I think I've only got one of them. Here's your Weequay. Reuse, whatever it is. Bib Fortuna. They made a lot, didn't they? Michael Schaefer saying grading is a waste of time and money in his opinion. And I would agree with that opinion wholeheartedly. Grading is a complete rip-off and waste of time. Jody saying, who would win in a battle with that Rancor and the little Transformer Slag? I reckon the Rancor would eat the Slag, and then Slag would destroy the Rancor from the inside. Maybe we should make a video about that. Random Thing says his favourite Jedi toy is Jabba. I do quite like Jabba. I don't really know why they called it a... Did they call it a playset or a deluxe action figure? I should have got the box out because I've got a box for this guy. It's not quite a playset, is it? Far from a playset, actually. It's just a figure with a diorama base. Thanks, Jody. Minifig Collector, are you asking what my feelings are on repro? I've done a number of videos. I dropped a video 2 weeks ago about some Stan Solo reproductions, and I think I made my thoughts pretty clear, so check that out. Charlie Gibbs, what's your favourite Last 17 figure? I don't have many. I've got this yak face here. This is a Smithwell Creations reproduction. The only other one I have is Anakin. I'm not really a collector of the Last 17 because I got out of, when I was a kid, I got out of Star Wars before the Last 17, before I saw them in shops. I do remember a friend down the street having a Luke and Stormtrooper disguise. I don't think I'm ever really going to go out and hunt out the Last 17, but I am quite partial to the the Death Star gunner. I think that's pretty cool, and Lando in his general's outfit's pretty nice. No, my Jabba playset has not caught any Buck Rogers figures, Jody. I know Michael's one did. And Bob B, what do you think of the Funko reaction figures? I don't particularly, I don't collect any Funko stuff. I did have, and correct me if I get this wrong, I did have a couple of the Alien action figures from the Alien movie. Were they by Funko Reaction? Yeah, they were pretty cool, but yeah, it's not something I'm really. Yeah, I don't really want to give an opinion when I haven't actually kind of studied the toys. I've heard a few people comment that they're not that well made. Like sometimes you can potentially, when you manipulate the hip joints with the legs, that actually the two parts of the torso can pull apart. Richard was saying Buck Rogers was forced to stare up into Jabba's funk and wagnalls. I wonder what action figure deserves that. Who deserves that treatment? General Madine maybe, because he's got the right accessory. If there was one stand solo or fan strike back action figure that was your favourite, who was it? I would have to say my favourite stand solo / Smith Lord Creations figure would be, or it's a hard choice. So the C-3PO from the Yavin ceremony I do really like, but I think probably my favourite would be the Han in Stormtrooper disguise, because it's a vintage figure that we never got back in the day and makes a perfect companion piece to the Luke in Stormtrooper disguise. Did I say Han in Stormtrooper disguise? Or did I say something else? Yeah, with the Kaiser rolls. Now you've been sucked in, what Return of the Jedi Black Series figures will be on your wish list? I'm not going to expand into Return of the Jedi. I am collecting a few Empire Strikes Back stuff. I've already got a plan. I've got a small shelf just behind the camera here in the studio. That X-Wing helmet's going to go in the middle. And I'm going to have some Bespin figures on one side and Dagobah figures on the other side of it. And that's it. Although I am tempted to get a Darth Vader and some Stormtroopers, but yeah, I'm not going to go into Return of the Jedi. Yeah, Jose, a lot of people have mentioned the Rancor. I love this toy. This is a super cool toy. When I got this, the hip joints were quite loose and he kept falling over, so I used a toy Poloid trick of he's got some fluff on his foot here. I used a toy Poloid trick of putting some plumber's PTFE tape around the hips to tighten them up, and now it works good. But yeah, this is a super cool toy with the working mouth action. Very, very impressive toy. Thank you very much, Michael. Retro Blasting saying he's going to send me a Darth Vader Black Series. If you say, thank you very much. I'm going to have to get some Stormtroopers now. I was looking around the other day at getting a Boba Fett, but what is it with Boba Fett, man? Even stuff that's not rare is valuable just because of such high demand. Why don't Hasbro just make more of them? Yeah. The Rancor sounds were made by a Dachshund? Really? Didn't know that. Rio Park, where do you get these? Facebook groups, eBay. Well, I don't get much Star Wars stuff from Facebook groups anymore because I've been blocked and removed from a lot of the anti-repro groups. There you go. Oh, don't worry, Michael. I was more than likely going to go and get some Stormtroopers anyway, so don't worry about making me spend more. I'm keeping an eye out. I actually seen when I was looking around on eBay the other day that from one of the much earlier Black Series waves, the Han in Stormtrooper disguise Black Series figure is relative. There's a lot of them available in Australia, and they're relatively cheap. So I may just pick up a couple of them and put the helmet on and just forget that it's Han Solo underneath. Keith Holmesley would like to send me a Black Series as well. Where can I get your shipping address? Keith, you can either message me on Patreon or email me at torturedgeniusfilms@gmail.com, or I can just write the address in here. So I've got a PO box now. If I can type. I haven't had a PO box for very long. So it's PO Box 673, Port Hedland, WA 6721 Australia. There you go. Did you know there was about 5 or 4 people inside Jabba the Hutt? Yes, I did. Yeah. I've seen some. What's that? The one documentary I think is really good is Empire of Dreams. Sort of feature-length documentary that covers the production of all 3 of the original trilogy movies. Yeah, Keith, I think Jody wants you to. I think Jody wants you to send him something as well. So they are releasing a new 6-inch Stormtrooper. Don't overpay for an older one. No, I'm not going to. I was aware that there was a new Stormtrooper coming out. I'm certainly not going to overpay for an older one. This Han in Stormtrooper disguise is actually relatively cheap in Australia, and there seems to be an abundance of them. When I searched Black Series 6-inch Stormtrooper the other day, that's what was popping up more than anything else. So I am starting a vintage Star Wars collection. Do you have any advice? Random Things. That's a really great question. So, Random Things is starting a vintage Star Wars collection. Do I have any advice? Yes, don't get ripped off buying the original accessories, which are, and I'm talking about the small blasters and things, like a Leia blaster now is well over $100 for a small little blaster. Don't get ripped off. Just go out and purchase some high quality repro accessories. Pick the figures up without the accessories. You'll get them far, far cheaper. That's a good way to start building out your collection. If you are staunchly anti-repro and you don't want repro in your collection, then my advice is to win Lotto, because that's the only way you're going to build a big collection. Tim Ward, good to see you on here, mate. My ever faithful moderator. Thank you very much for always being here and keeping the chat nice and clean. Michael Schaefer says, how many times did you explode your speeder bike? Quite a few when I was a kid, but even more recently when I did the video around the top 10 Star Wars vehicles, I exploded that quite a few times. I had to do several takes until I got a shot that I was happy with the way it exploded, and when all the bits fell down, it stayed within frame. So that's good fun sometimes. Sometimes shooting all the B-roll for videos is very time-consuming and laborious, but also it can be a lot of fun. It gives you an excuse to get your toys out of the cabinets and actually have a play with them and yeah, test out the play features and all the functions that they had. Which is why I'm really looking forward to Action Force Part 5, where I can get that battle tank going again. I did spend some time after the last live stream playing with that Action Force battle tank. Don't know where it is. I must have taken it upstairs. I know that you don't have much in the G.I. Joe Adventure Team, but given this as the 50th anniversary, would you plan on a special stream or video for those awesome figures from the 70s, 76? Yeah, potentially. It hadn't occurred to me that it was the 50th anniversary of the Adventure Team, because I always look at G.I. Joe and go by its year of inception, which was 64, which are obviously 6 years prior to Adventure Team. So the next big birthday for G.I. Joe for me is in 2024. It'll be the 60th anniversary. Yeah, potentially, but I literally only have one Adventure Team figure, so there wouldn't be much on the table, but maybe I can figure another way of doing a live stream about that. I don't know. Retroblast is saying, George goes and brings up Tim Tams, and my blue jeans don't have much waistband left at this point. Yeah, we all know you're partial to some Tim Tams, Michael. Knights of Old says, Analog Toys, do you use a certain brand of stands for your figures? Yeah, I do. I use star stands, these small star stands, and I had an epiphany the other day that I shared with Michael French on a private chat. I don't know how well you can see those. So the small star stands. So to all of the anti-repro haters out there who are staunchly anti-repro, if you have any of these in your collection, which I'm sure you do, most Star Wars collectors have all of their figures on these star stands, these are reproduction. These were first introduced in 1983 by Palitoy as a figure stand for Action Force figures, and they were available in the Battle Gear accessory sets. So for Action Force fans who want to try and find original ones of these, they've got no hope, because there are thousands and thousands of these, millions of these probably, in collections all over the world. This is a reproduction piece, fellas. Don't go on about your repro layer blaster and ignore the fact that all of your figures are on repro stands. There, I've had my rant. Vintage Toy Rush says Tim Tam would make a good Star Wars character name. Yeah, a good name for an Ewok maybe. Tim Tam. Maybe that's what I'm going to start calling Baby Yoda, actually, because I don't like the name Baby Yoda, because it's not Baby Yoda, it's just from the same race as Yoda. Maybe I'm going to start calling him Tim Tam until they reveal his name, which will potentially come in season 2, who knows. Thank you, Michael Schaefer. Thank you, Scuba Pete. I might make a Facebook post about this later with a couple of images, because I've got a couple of the Battle Gear sets that show the original stand from Palitoy 1983. With one of these, I'll do like a comparison photo and I'll put it on Facebook so you guys can share it wherever you want to share it. Retro blasting, and that right there is the smoking gun that killed the anti-repro crusade. Absolutely. And I had another epiphany yesterday. Michael, you shared a link to Sal's. So Salvador runs a channel called 2 Cent Toys. I know Michael sort of tries to promote that channel a lot, and I have to be honest, I hadn't had a look until very recently, and I've really, literally the last couple of days, I've started watching the videos. I really enjoy the content, and I recommend checking it out as well. And he was doing a review of the 40th anniversary Empire Strikes Back 6-inch series, Forlom and Zuckuss. How can we not pronounce it AT-AT, but we can pronounce it Forlom? Shouldn't it be 4LOM? Like, this debate is bloody ridiculous. The whole idea, guys, that I really thought I articulated well in that last video, but people still want to make comments, is that you can say it either way. It can be an AT-AT or an AT-AT. There is no right or wrong way. So it's 4LOM or 4LOM. Another example. I highly recommend not only just checking out that 2 Cents Toys video, but checking out all their content. I've been really enjoying it the last couple of days. And I will post some links on the Facebook page after this. Jody, thank you very much for the super chat. He sent me a super chat saying, for stabbing the anti-repro community. I do my best, man. I do my best. I've got absolutely no issue with people who don't want repro in their collection. I've got no issue with that. I do have an issue with other collectors telling other collectors what, who, how, how they should collect. Don't tell me what to do. It's like playground tactics, man. When it's childish. It's like being back in recess and the bullies in the school telling you, what you should be into and what you should do. George Aitken says the Rebel Commando and the Biker were the only first wave Jedi figures who have guns. Yeah, and the only reason, George Aitken, that my Rebel Commando has his rifle is because you sent it to me in a mystery box. So thank you very much once again. You're a very, very kind and generous man, George. Retro Blasting, thank you very much for the super chat, because he doesn't want to be shown up by Jody. Thank you very much. And speaking of George and Retro Blasting all at the same time, in that last live stream, I opened up a gift box from George, and there was another parcel in there for Retro Blasting. I shipped that out the following Monday, so it was 2 weeks ago, although knowing what's going on, it might take 2 months to arrive in the States. Mail from the UK to Australia to and from doesn't seem too bad, but for some reason to and from the States is very difficult. There's probably less flights going in that direction, or more mail, I don't know. But yeah, we have got a combined mystery box on its way to Retro Blasting with some stuff from George and some stuff from me. So I look forward to that live stream in 3 months when it finally turns up. Michael Schaefer, thank you very much for the super chat. You're all trying to outdo each other now. He sent me $10.01. Let's not turn this into a super chat competition. Well, you can if you want. I can use it to buy a Black Series figure for the channel. Jody here giving some guys some lessons in currency exchange. Kieran Ball says Baby Yoda is not a younger version of Yoda. So what is he, Kieran Ball? What I was saying when I said he's not Baby Yoda is like it's not Yoda's baby. I don't believe. I just believe it's. Keith Holmesley, the child is a Yodarian from Yodera. Yeah. Nine Num actually spoke a Kenyan tribal tongue in the original script, and people from there were surprised to hear their language in the film. There's a fact I didn't know. Speaking of the man himself, there he is, the second best co-pilot of the Millennium Falcon, behind Chewbacca. I've got my B-Wing pilot here. This B-Wing pilot is one of the most mint figures I have in my collection. It's absolutely stunning. I don't think this was ever played with. That's an original blaster. Some of these figures have original. Some of them have a mixture of repro. I've got a list that I keep it in. I don't know. Too early in the morning. I have a list that I keep on my computer as I purchase Star Wars stuff and make a note of repro accessories, because over the years you tend to forget, and I don't want to go and, not that I'm probably going to sell any of this stuff on, but yeah, I don't want to go and resell something and accidentally rip someone off. So the super chats are coming thick and fast now. Scuba Pete, thank you very much. He says buy a Black Series on me. I certainly will. I'm gonna jump online straight after this. And then Jody, another super chat, €10 and 2. What's the smaller currency in euro? It's not cents. €10.02. Yeah, there you go. Thank you for the super chat, guys. Much appreciated. Yes, Michael. So he's saying he could choose to either keep raising the super chats or save the money to send Tony the next mystery box. Yeah, I prefer the mystery box. It gives us something to do in the live stream. And I have a mystery box today from my good friend Gary Atkinson. So George Aitken and Gary Atkinson. I always have to concentrate when I say their names. I don't get them mixed up, but they're both Action Force super fans, and over the last year or however long it's been, I've become good friends with both of them. So we've got a box here from Gary Atkinson to open towards the end of the stream. Okay, thanks Jody. It's cents, so €10 and 2 cents. Perfect. That American Kid, good to see you back on the live stream again. Now this is super rare, but do you by any chance have a Rocket Fire and Boba Fett figure? No, I don't. I have no desire to spend that kind of money. I think there was one sold last year at auction. It went for over 100 grand, and I can remember watching, I think it was the very, very first episode of the Toy Hunter about 10 years ago, where I think that was about 8 years ago, where a Rocket Fire and Boba Fett sold for about 18 grand. So in 8 years, it's gone from 18 grand to 100 grand. That's just ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I'm more interested in acquiring the toys as they were sold. I'm not huge into prototypes. The few prototypes that I do have in my collection have all been very kindly gifted to me by various designers from Palatoy. They are treasured possessions in my collection that I'll never let go. But yeah, I'm not a collector of prototype stuff. Kieran Ball says repro guns don't always fit the hands of vintage figures. You just have to look for good quality ones. Stan Solo, Smithroll Creations, go for those. But some of these guys actually didn't hold their weapons very well back in the day with the originals. You know, so maybe it's not the weapon, maybe it's just not the particular figure. Like you take the speeder bike guy here, and he holds his gun at an angle as though he's shooting across over there. You know. Some of the original Kenner figures, yeah, really didn't hold their weapons very well. Well, I do particularly like the Endor Han with the jacket, the way he holds his blaster. Very, very nicely done. Random Thing says he thinks he'll buy the Smithroll Creations Bantha, the Fan Strike Back Bantha. I pre-ordered the Bantha last year. I'm very, very excited to one day eventually acquire that and do a review. Yeah, Vintage Toy Rush. Anyone buying a figure for $100,000 is probably not a Star Wars fan, but an investor. Or maybe a combination of the both. Because a lot of the anti-repro crowd are so obsessed with the value of their collection that they are a combination of Star Wars collector and investor, I believe. This whole thing with AFA grading as well. It's like, what would be the point in me buying certainly loose figures like AFA graded? It wouldn't make for very fun videos, would it? Where I can't pose the figures and sit them in vehicles and all that stuff. There's just no desire for that. BD says, am I drinking blue coffee? No, and I don't want to after, was it The Last Jedi, ruined the whole image of blue milk for me, Star Wars. No, I'm drinking proper strong Yorkshire tea. And he also asks, where do you get a Death Star Gunner repro? I'm not aware that anyone has ever made a repro of the figure. Like, you can get his accessory reproduction, but I'm not aware of... That's not to say it's not available out there, but I'm not aware of anyone who's made a reproduction Death Star Gunner figure. If anyone does know, let me know, because I'd like to purchase one. Yes, George Aiken, there are some people making repro rocket firing Bobas, and I think even Hasbro released an example of rocket firing Boba Fett as well. John Kenny, why not just buy a movie prop over just a toy from the collection? I wonder what they went for. Yeah, I'm not a huge prop collector, like this, probably this Black Series helmet, maybe one of the few movie prop items I've ever purchased, I think. Yeah, I'm just solely a toy collector. I don't know why that is. It's probably too late for me to start. I've often been tempted to, you know, I would like to have a Captain America shield to hang on the wall. I've been looking at them more and more recently, like the Marvel Legends Captain America shields. But yeah. Chris Meavis, compliments on my shirt. Thank you very much. This is my. I've got a few Star Wars shirts. This is my favourite. I do particularly like this shirt. A $10 purchase from my local Kmart. Yeah. Thanks, Michael. He's saying that the Pro Customs figures, they make the rocket firing replicas. Cool. Yeah. George Aitkins says me and Michael might end up playing Star Wars Squadrons. Potentially. Is there any Obi-Wan Return of the Jedi figure? They did a ghost version of Obi-Wan, not in the vintage line. They did it in the Power of the Force line in the 90s. For us as kids, we had the original Obi-Wan from Star Wars, from the first movie, and it just got re-released on different card backs. Yeah, next episode, Analog Toys goes shopping at the Retroblasting Archive. That American Kid, what is your rarest Star Wars figure? Like number produced, resale I don't know. Rarest Star Wars figure. For me, it would have to be, I have a carded Bespin Luke Skywalker, which is, I think I paid around $400 for that a few years ago. I'm not a huge collector of mint on card. I like to have a couple of examples to sit at the back of the shelf. And being that was my favourite character, I saw that for what I thought was a reasonable price a number of years ago and purchased it. Retroblasting, is that... I didn't... Retroblasting is saying that you had to buy a bag of crisps for the proofs of purchase to get his ghost figure. I wasn't aware of that. It was a mail away. Okay. Any plans for another Analog Toys Retroblasting chat? Yes, Michael Johnson, more than likely. I'm assuming you're talking about like the Palatalk episode. Yeah, I'd love to sit down with Michael again and have a chat. Maybe we'll see if he's got some time over the coming weeks. Jersey Hurricane, thank you very much for your comment. Appreciate it. Speaking of Yak Face, who you mentioned in the chat, so I've got this Smith Law Creations reproduction down here, and I also have the beautiful carded versions. This is reproduction, absolutely stunning, and I'm much happier owning this than what an original one would be, like a $10,000 figure. So much happier owning that. I got a few. I've got a few boxes here. So some original packaging. So I've got a nice box for the speeder bike. It's got the original insert and the instructions and everything. I do like toy packaging. Don't collect heaps of stuff, and certainly when it comes to boxes, I don't buy sealed boxes because I want to be able to get the toy out. Matt Hall says, "Hey Tony, great stream. That you have the Rebel Trooper prominently displayed. Is that by choice or chance? A great figure that I don't feel gets enough love." Um, I've got a lot of gaps in my Return of the Jedi toy collection. A lot of gaps. Probably, in fact, when it comes to Star Wars, probably my most complete. So I don't tend to split Star Wars toys up into the three films. You have the first film, the third film, Return of the Jedi, and then The Empire Strikes Back. I have like Hoth toys and non-Hoth toys. So the most complete collection I have, which still isn't complete, is Hoth toys. I've got a lot of gaps in my Return of the Jedi collection, as I said. I would love to get a Y-Wing. I'm not too keen on ever acquiring the Imperial Shuttle that I like to call Shuttle Cumbersome rather than Shuttle Tidarium, because it's just a large, cumbersome toy that you only fit two figures in. It's difficult to display. It looks a bit impressive, but yeah. But going back to your question around the Rebel Trooper, yeah, I do like the figure. I don't like the fact that he can't hold his gun very well. But I think the main reason I put it here so prominently is because my buddy George Aitken sent me the rifle not too long ago. I've had this figure for a long time without his accessory. So, and George sent me the original one in a mystery box of Action Force stuff. So, Keith Holmesley says, Tony, if someone gave you the sail barge, would you keep it? No, I would try and convince the person not to give me the sail barge. I don't want it. I'm predominantly a vintage collector, and if I was ever going to acquire something that big as a sort of display centerpiece, I would much rather get the vintage G.I. Joe flag than the sail barge. Clay3613 is asking, do I have the Ewok Village? No, I don't have the Ewok Village. I would like to get it though. That's right, Michael Schaefer. I'm in Australia. I actually don't exist. I am computer generated. Australians do not exist, and we do not order sail barges or have them get stuck in the States. Scuba Pete has just opened his Stan Solo figures. Wow, the Yavin C-3PO, Hoth K3, Yak and Snaggle. Yeah, they are very, very impressive figures. What is your favourite R2-D2 and C-3PO line? They always look good next to each other. Well, as of right now, my favourite C-3PO and R2-D2 are the Stan Solo ones, and specifically the Yavin Ceremony C-3PO with the pop-up saber R2-D2. I've displayed that figure without his third leg. I like the way they stand next to each other with R2-D2 just on the two legs. But I've got them in my cabinet together. They're actually my favourites, are two of the reproduction ones. Retro blasting, he can hear the Kylie Minogue song in the lavatory of the airplane at 2 a.m. right now like it was yesterday. Yeah, it is a very, very long flight from the States to Melbourne, an extremely long flight. Keith Holmesley says, I wish I could move and live in Australia. I've always wanted to since I was a kid. Yeah, I was very lucky. My parents brought me to Australia when I was 11 years of age. We packed up our life in the UK and moved over here. And it was a great experience. I think travel is an excellent education. And for a kid who had spent, the first 11 years of his life in one country and then, my high school years and my early 20s in another country, I always felt I had a bit of a life experience edge over some of the other people that I grew up with. For example, I grew up with some people who had never even left the state of Western Australia, and I had a bit more of an improved worldview, and I highly recommend to anyone who has children is take them travelling, take them to different places, experience different cultures. Yes, Keith, Australia is very strict on immigrants. for people wanting to migrate to Australia, you have to have some kind of a skill that the country requires at the time. So when my father decided to emigrate to Australia, I think they first applied in 1986, and it took a couple of years to go through the process. But he was a mechanical engineer, and at the time Australia needed that particular trade. But that it changes. I remember a while ago, I think going back about 10 or 15 years, one of the easiest ways to get in Australia was as a hairdresser, because the country didn't have enough hairdressers. So it's this whole process that you go through. You have to have a skill that the country requires, whether it's being a plumber and gas fitter or whatever. And if you've got the right trade, and you put together your application, you can get residency in Australia. Do you think it was more difficult back in the day to get Star Wars figures, or had to wait longer compared to US and UK release dates? I don't know, because I was a young... Are you talking about like the vintage stuff when I was a kid? I don't know, because it was my parents who were going to buy it for me, but it didn't seem to be difficult to get. It was everywhere. One thing, and it's not Star Wars related, but one thing I always found extremely hard to find when I was a kid was from Action Force International Heroes, like the rebranded G.I. Joe. It was very, very, very difficult to acquire Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes due to their popularity. I hope I don't mispronounce this, but Kyriakos Vafidas, thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it. I hope I didn't butcher your name there when I said that. Keith Holmesley, and the rest of the world hates America for trying to require the same of immigrants. Australia is a very accepting multicultural country. Like there is certainly racism issues in the country, and I don't want to turn this into a political live stream by any means. I'm not much of a political person. But I have found for the most part, Australian culture is extremely tolerant of different cultures, people's life choices. It's a nice place to live. It really is a nice place to live. Jersey Hurricane, I'm going to punch the pillow for my job. Thanks so much for taking me to a simpler time. Okay, I didn't really know what the first part of that meant, but you're very welcome. If you can hear any banging and crashing in the background, that's just Gracie leaving for work. Analog Toys, is there a COVID lockdown there, Tony? We are on stage 4 of restrictions easing, so we are almost completely out of lockdown. Stage 5 is the final stage, where basically everything goes. But that's only within the state of Western Australia. Our borders are closed. People cannot come into the state. In the state of Victoria, which is where Melbourne is, they have, over the last week or two, experienced a second wave, and the numbers are starting to escalate day by day. It's very, very concerning. So I really feel for any fans of the channel who are in Melbourne or in Victoria. They sort of went into lockdown, they started to come out, and now they're going back into lockdown again. So I feel very lucky to be living where I am. There are very, very few cases in Western Australia. All of those that are, as far as I'm aware, are people who've returned from overseas who are being in forced quarantine in hotels. There is no spread in the state of Western Australia, but it is happening in other parts of Australia. So, yes, Jody, Australia is a nice place to live, but also every insect, animal, creature out here wants to eat you and kill you. Snakes, spiders, great white sharks, crocodiles. There is some dangerous wildlife here. Dr. Boogie Esquire says, do I have a favourite figure from Hoth? Yes, the AT-AT driver. I really like the vintage AT-AT driver. There's just something about the sculpting of that figure I think is really cool. George Aitken saying, yeah, it could be worse. In Japan, they have Godzilla. Yep. The actor played mask off Darth Vader. Oh, so the actor who played Darth Vader with his mask removed wasn't even aware what he was on set for until he was on set. Okay. Is that so that he couldn't spoil it for everybody else, or I don't know? Keith Holmesley, do we have huge killer spiders in Australia? A lot of the killer spiders are not huge. They're actually very small. We have things like redback spiders, a lot of them here in Western Australia, where they probably wouldn't kill a healthy adult, but you know, a weaker elderly person and young children they can kill. Funnel web spiders are very, very dangerous. Yeah. Bob B, what's my opinion on Lego? I think Lego's a good toy for children. I think Lego's really good for kids to learn how. You know, I have a mechanical trade. Like I work on large mining equipment, and I actually think playing with Lego when I was a kid set me up well later in life when I went to college studying to be able to read like engineering drawings and compare drawings to pieces of equipment. I first learned that skill with Lego. So yeah. John Kenny, must have been hard on you being so young starting in a new country. No, it wasn't actually, because my family had been talking about it for about 2 years. And I really felt as though I was going on an adventure. And it really felt like that, you know. At the time, in the 80s, I was a fan of Crocodile Dundee. My sister was a fan of Neighbours. She was a huge fan of Scott and Charlene, played by Jason Donovan and Kylie Minogue. And we really thought when we came to Australia that I was going to go fish for barramundi with Crocodile Dundee and she was going to live on Ramsay Street. The reality was not quite that. But yeah, it felt like an adventure. I made some good friends at school quite quickly. One friend in particular, me and him bonded over our love of G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Yeah, and then I think I did like 1 year of what we call primary school or junior school, and then I went into high school. And when I got into high school, then I started, you know, I tried to be a surfer, realised I didn't have the balance for it, so I became a bodyboarder instead, but just enjoyed the beach life and all that stuff, so. Yes, George Aitken, I also like that the AT-AT driver and the AT-AT commander, when they came out, they could sit side by side in the cockpit, yeah, and that's how I like to display my AT-AT with those two figures in there. Simon Watt says, can you see a version of analog toys and retroblasting existing in 30 to 40 years' time for the toys of today? Possibly. That's an interesting question, which I've never really given much thought. If analog toys is still around in 30 to 40 years' time, there will be a different host, because by then I will be between 73 and 83 years old, and you won't want to see my wrinkled face on YouTube. But I hope maybe I can pass the baton on to someone else. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting question. I have to give that some thought. I don't know. Yeah, no one wants to see me and Michael in our 80s. Vintage Toy Rush is saying that have me and my wife ever sung especially for you? Me and my wife both have horrendous singing voices, so no. We do tend to sing a bit after a few wines, but we sound god awful. Random things. My favourite action figure of all time is Yoda. Yeah, Yoda's a cool action figure. Lots of accessories. I like that. Do you know if the Kenner B-Wing filer is just a generic figure or is it based on a certain actor? I have no idea. Knights of Old is asking, is the Australia's TV show Yummy Mummies popular there? I've never even heard of that. Did I read any of the Star Wars comics? No, growing up in the UK, I remember having a Star Wars annual, which I believe had a lot of the comic stories in it. I had the annual from the first Star Wars movie, which I actually think was probably my brother's and got passed on to me. God knows where it is now. When's the next Gracie show? I don't know. See, it's trying to come up with a topic. It was really good to get Gracie on the couple of live streams where we were doing the fundraiser for the bushfire relief effort, because it was something she was really passionate about and interested in. But she doesn't particularly have a desire to sit down and talk about Return of the Jedi toys with me. So she's not into it. What's my favourite Star Wars vehicle? The Snowspeeder. Easy. I would like to try and get Gracie on the show again. I would like to. Great wines of the supermarket, yeah. Potentially me and Gracie can just sit on here and have a couple of wines, and me and my wife have a real healthy banter. We take the piss out of each other constantly, and it's good fun. You know, we don't. It's impossible for us to offend each other, so. My favourite Star Wars playset. I can answer that question by saying I think the Kenner Death Star, because I particularly like it. But having said that, I've never been able to physically examine the Palatoy Death Star. I've never been able to physically examine the Ewok village either. So when I say the Kenner Death Star, maybe that will change when I get to physically experience all of the play sets. But there you go. Tim Hayes is asking, what does it mean to take the piss out of each other? That's an English and Australian term, to take the piss out of each other. That means to poke fun at each other, you know, and not one-sided. It's not picking on someone. Like I'll poke fun at Grace and she'll instantly turn around and poke fun at me, and that we call that taking the piss. It's a very British term. Phil Chadwick had that weird robot on the ride as well. Yeah, this is 8D8. Some people call him the torture droid. He was the one who was branding the feet of droids in Jabba's dungeon. Yeah, Michael Schaefer, that's a good way to put it. So to answer Tim's question of what does taking the piss out of each other mean, busting someone's balls, you know, but a two-way thing. A very, very healthy bit of banter between people. Hi Tony, if you could commission a Star Wars figure that has never been produced before, what would you pick? I would really... Ooh, I've probably got a couple of choices here. I would love to have a DAC or a Wedge, some of those guys, rather than just the generic Luke in his X-Wing outfit. But I would also really like... So, in the last 17, I can't remember what they call it, but there was the Endor Luke available with his poncho, but his helmet didn't come off. I would like to have a Death Star dual Luke Skywalker. So his black outfit. So potentially that figure, but with a removable helmet as well. That would be cool. And a lightsaber as well. Roger Miller says, speaking of the Snowspeeder, have I seen the new Black Series one? Yeah, I watched a couple of videos on it the other day. Certainly haven't seen it in the shops here. I don't think it'll come to my local Kmart. Yeah, interesting. Matt Hall says he appreciates that I mentioned 2000 AD as a missed opportunity as far as toy lines go. Did you read the magazine comics a lot as a kid? I've been collecting a lot of the old anthologies lately. I read them a bit. I wasn't a huge comic book reader when I was really young. I more got into comics from the age of like 10 and up. Action Force Weekly will always be my favourite comic. But then when I got into my teenage years in Australia, and I sort of stopped playing with toys, I did used to go to comic shops a lot, and I was a big fan of the Punisher comics. I jumped into the Punisher somewhere around issue 18, I believe, but from issue 18 I collected them for a long time. Adam Hurt, good to see you here. What is the next Star Wars toy you'd like to get? Is there a holy grail out there for you? There are a number of things. I would like the Turret and Probot playset. I would definitely like to get the Y-Wing. Actually, Mr. Lurch tagged me in a Y-Wing that was for sale in Australia the other day. Had the box with it. It was about $400 Australian. It's a pretty okay price. But I have other priorities at the moment. I don't just drop $400 on a toy here when I'm actually actively seeking other stuff. So Punisher XX will be getting that Black Series Snowspeeder next week. Cool. Share some pictures on the Facebook page, man. Random Thing says, what modern Star Wars toys would you buy? If you had asked me that question a couple of months ago, I would say that I don't buy any modern stuff. Now I'm just trying to complete a mini collection of the Black Series 6-inch figures from The Empire Strikes Back. Not the entire lot. I've got Lando in the post. I've got Dagobah R2-D2. Potentially I want to get a Vader and Stormtrooper. That's it. Kieran Ball, we did get Judge Dredd, Judge Anderson, and Judge Death action figures. Yeah, we did, Kieran Ball, but when I made that video, I was actually talking about us getting the toys at the time that the franchise was popular. So back in the back in the 80s when the comic was out, we never had any toys for it then. Sean Rush is asking where I get the plastic stands for my figures. Just on eBay, man. Just search for Star Stands. You can buy bags of 20 relatively cheap. George has a pile of carded Power of the Force figures. Power of the Force or Power of the Force 2? Because Power of the Force carded figures are very valuable, George. How long have we been going for? I can't even tell. Oh, over an hour. I'm going to have to get to this box very, very soon. But before I do that, I want to share one more thing with you. And that is a box for the B-Wing fighter. Awesome. This box is huge, eh? I remember I bought this a number of years ago, and when it turned up, I was actually, it's a toy I didn't have as a kid, and when I purchased it off eBay, and when it arrived, I was like, damn, that's huge. Tyler Levens says, what is a Vegemite sandwich? Have you ever had one? Yeah, I've eaten a lot of Vegemite sandwiches. Vegemite is just a particular type of sandwich spread that we have here in Australia. It's a uniquely Australian, similar to Marmite in the UK, if you know what that is. Okay, I think we're going to get onto this box now. I'm going to move some of these guys out of the way. Jabba. So what's everyone up to for the weekend? I am looking forward to this time tomorrow morning for the first UFC on Fight Island. I've had a bit of a bet on Jorge Masvidal beating Kamaru Usman. Don't gamble, folks. I don't gamble a lot, but I do like to have a little bit of a bet on some of the big UFC fights. I don't bet on all the UFC fights, just the big ones. Keith Holmesley, I have the Black Series Snowspeeder. I thought I posted pics, did I not? Possibly. As I mentioned in that message the other day, Keith, that the community tab on the Patreon page has been going crazy just lately. There's so much awesome stuff being shared on there that you may have done, and it's just slipped my mind because there's been so much stuff getting shared. It's been really, really cool. That tea is cold now. It's been there for over an hour. Okay. Before I open this, I want to say, so this is from my friend Gary Atkinson, who is an Action Force super collector. He's got a really, really impressive collection of Action Force stuff. But Gary hasn't been in the best of health recently. I'm trying to think how it's been for several months now. And Gary, I'm really, really pleased to know that you are back home again and that you're on the mend. And I sincerely wish you all the best for the future, man. You're a good dude. You're a very kind and generous man. And it's nice to have you as a friend. So really pleased that you're back home, mate. And thank you very much for this box. Let's get into it and see what we have. Knights of Old. What are some of my favourite UFC fights of all time? Oh, wow. One of my all-time favourite fights was the first time that Justin Gaethje fought in the UFC against Michael Johnson. I thought that was a brilliant fight. I'm a huge Justin Gaethje fan. What are some others? Also, the Justin Gaethje fight with Tony Ferguson recently. Actually, and there was an announcement recently. I can't remember the name of the toy company, but they've done. There's a toy company that's bringing out some UFC action figures, and I think they're terrible. And I nearly made a video about it the other day. If you guys would like to see me do a bit of a video about these new UFC action figures, let me know, and I'll make it happen. Okay, what do we have in here? Everything you get from Gary is always very, very well packed, bomb-proof. We have a box. Like pass the parcel, this. Wrappers inside wrappers. Damn, man. Gary doesn't muck about when he packs stuff up. Wow. Wow. We have an original box for the Action Force SAS Silent Attack. This is a toy that was donated to the channel by George Aitken, and now the box for it has been donated by Gary Atkinson. This is cool. Thank you very, very much, Gary. What's this? There's something inside. Alright, we have instructions. We have the instructions for it. Oh, dude. We have instructions, but if you can see in there, he's sent me a small grey Uzi. This is very similar to the one for Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe, but this is in a grey colour because it's the missing accessory from my Stilo, who drives the Action Force battle tank that I showed in the last live stream. Thank you very much, Gary. I really needed that accessory. Awesome. Awesome. This is a really nice box. How cool is that, guys? How cool is that? Very nice. Gary, really appreciate it, dude. Thank you very, very much. Venkman, good to see you here. He's on his break at work. I'm just popping in to say hi. Thanks very much. Don't forget, you can always watch the replay. I think someone was mentioning at the start, they're asking me not to take the live streams down. I don't take the live streams down. After the live streams end, I turn them to unlisted so it doesn't blow up in people's feeds. Some people don't like live streams. So if you ever miss a live stream, just go onto the channel page, look at our playlists, and they'll be on the live stream playlist. I update them after every stream. Yes, Scuba Pete, it's the SAS Beaver. Beaver's the code name of the guy in the canoe. What does that says it on here anywhere? It doesn't. But yeah, that's his name. Very nice. Jody's saying, I wonder how long Analog Toys played with that tank after the stream. For quite a while. I was getting it to drive around the living room floor and chase the cats. Dashy T says, hi Tony, do you have the vintage Return of the Jedi vinyl collector's case? I don't have any of the vinyl collector cases. I have the Darth Vader collector's case with the Empire Strikes Back cardboard packaging around it. Cardboard's in pretty poor condition, but at least I've still got the packaging for it. Keith, yeah. Yeah, scuba. Isn't that what you remove from your friend's pond? A beaver dam? Potentially. Thanks, Tim. Tim has just dropped the live stream playlist into the chat there. Much appreciated, my man. All right. I've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, and I need another cup of tea. So I think we'll wind it up there. I don't know how much we actually talked about Return of the Jedi toys today, but it's always fun to jump on the stream and have a chat with you guys and answer your questions and comments. Dashy T, any plan for another team up with Michael at Retroblasting? Yes, there is. There is. We are collaborating again on another Star Wars Follies. We were only just speaking about it yesterday, I believe. Me and Michael were having a chat about it. Can't tell you when it's going to drop. We don't want to rush this one. Michael's going to kind of send me a script outline at some stage. And then I'll do some contributions, and we'll just keep working on the script in the background while we're doing other stuff for each other's channels, for our own channels. And when we're happy with, we've got a good script, yeah, we'll be collaborating on another Star Wars Follies in the near future. Mr. Lurch, I mentioned your name not too long ago. You only just got here. Unfortunately, I'm about to wrap up the stream because I need a cup of tea. Thanks, Keith. Much appreciate that. Andy OC, mate, Action Force Series 1, what's your opinion? I'm currently collecting and just bought the US Paratrooper. I like all of Action Force, to be honest. I've been focused on, rather than Series 1, I've been focused on 1983-84 recently for this video series that I'm doing. But my Series 1 collection is getting a bit bigger, so I actually think when I complete Part 5 on the Z-Force, speaking of which, Joseph sent me some awesome updates on the Gaucho repair that he's doing this morning. The thumbs are done, he's done some painting. I think all he's got left to do is repair the broken crotch piece, and then he'll be sending it back my way. So, but yeah, once I complete the 5-part series on Action Force, I'm then potentially going to try and seek out the remaining figures and vehicles and stuff that I need from Series 1 and do a video on Series 1 Action Force as well. So Rob Wallace just got here. Can we start over? No, you can certainly restart the stream, mate, because yeah, I need to go and get a cup of tea. Just before I go and get a cup of tea, I almost forgot. I'm going to share one thing with you guys. I shared it yesterday with the patrons, and since my good buddy Gary Atkinson sent me this awesome Action Force box here, I suppose it's kind of fitting that in return, I'm going to share with you a thumbnail for an upcoming video. So for those of you who follow us on Patreon, I did a Patreon update a couple of days ago, and I talked about that yesterday morning I was going to take a few of the Q-Force figures, or a few of the Q-Force vehicles from Action Force, actually into the wild. Although I filmed most of my toys in the studio, I didn't, because a lot of the Q-Force stuff, it's the aquatic team, it floats on water. I didn't want to just fill up the bath and sit them in the bath. I actually took them down to a local creek. And I was really happy with the footage that I got down there early yesterday morning. So much so that I decided to make the thumbnail for Action Force Part 4 on the Q-Force. And I'm just going to share that thumbnail with you right now. I'm excited. I said to everyone that I was going to be filming it this weekend. I still hope to film it tomorrow after the UFC. But I'm still working on the script. I'm still refining the script a little bit. So, yeah. I had a lot of fun taking it down the creek, and it was an early start. I got down there. I had to stand in the water a bit to film, and the water was bloody freezing. The weather outside wasn't too cold, but the water was quite cold, and I was sort of in it up to my knees. I think we're freezing by the time I came out, but yeah. George Aitken says the Q-Force was the first team he ever bought. Yeah, and as you can see in this thumbnail, George, is it that way? That way? That way. Your last mystery box, George, I've taken the hole for the swordfish, and I've put it together because for those of you who don't know, the swordfish that I had was a German version. I thought the stickers were different, but then when I actually compared them, it's actually molded in a different coloured plastic even. So I'm happy to have the British edition, the main Palatoy edition, rather than the German version. Keith Holmesley, did any of the stickers get damaged? No. I didn't submerge them in the water. I just floated them on the water a little bit. And it was salt water as well. Like the creek is right near the creek flows out into the ocean. So when I came back, I washed all the salt water off everything. Cool, guys. All right, thanks for hanging out. I've enjoyed this. It's great to catch up. I haven't seen or spoken to many of you for a couple of weeks, as I took a break last week with my dad up here. But yeah, Action Force Part 4 should be the next video that comes, unless maybe I do a bit of an ad hoc video about these UFC action figures. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Have a great weekend, guys. And I'll see you in the next video. My stomach's rumbling. I need some breakfast. All right, take care, guys. Cheers.